Hey guys, what's up? It's Glavian, and in a couple of my videos now, I've mentioned one of my friends who was this super sweaty mythic WoW raider. And to preserve his sense of anonymity, we're going to be calling my friend Garrosh Jr. because this video is going to be about Garrosh Jr. And so, a couple days ago, I did a video about the Golden Saucer, and I wanted to get Garrosh Jr.'s opinion on the thumbnail before I uploaded the video. And so I sent him the thumbnail and I say, "Hey Garrosh Jr., what do you think about this thumbnail? You like it?" And Garrosh Jr. says, I mean, it looks cool, but what the fuck is the Golden Saucer? And you wouldn't think twice about it, considering that this is an ex-WoW player, and he, all his experience in MMOs was with WoW, except for the fact that that's not true. Garrosh Jr. has 250 hours in Final Fantasy that he spent there about a year and a half ago and got all the way up to Stormblood. And so I paused and I said, "Hey, Garrosh Jr." He said, "Yeah." I said, "How do you get 250 hours into the game without knowing what the Golden Saucer is?" And so Garrosh Jr. says, "Well, let me tell you what happened." He said, "When I'd play Final Fantasy XIV, I would skip every cutscene. I would just click through all of the dialogue. And on my second monitor, I would have Hell's Kitchen loaded up, and I'd be watching that while going through the story." And so I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. And of course, I felt a little repulsed, just a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but to each his own. And I said, well, all right then, that makes sense. And then I kind of explained to him what the Golden Saucer was. And now, yesterday or the day before, Garrosh Jr. sends me a message and he says, "Dude." I say, "Yeah." He says, "I made a big mistake." And I said, "How many cupcakes?" He said, "What?" I said, "How many cupcakes did you eat?" He said, "No, no, no, it's not that." And then I said, "Okay, well, then what is it?" And he says, "I bought Sekiro." And I said, "The From Software game? Sekiro from FromSoft, the guys who made Dark Souls?" And he said, "Yeah, that's the one." And I said, "My friend, that isn't a mistake. You made the right choice. Congratulations. Have fun." And so my friend starts playing Sekiro. Garrosh Jr. starts playing Sekiro. And in that game, you play as, well, Sekiro. And Sekiro is a shinobi. Not a samurai. Don't get them confused. A shinobi. And so this apparently triggered something in Garrosh Jr. Because when Garrosh Jr. played Final Fantasy XIV for those 250 hours, he mainly played as a ninja. And a ninja in Final Fantasy XIV is a shinobi. So a combination of, Sekiro inspiring him to play Final Fantasy XIV again, combined with some peer pressure from some of his other friends to play the game again. Garrosh Jr. is now playing Final Fantasy XIV again. And so he hits me up and he says, "Yo, I bought some game time. I thought, it's only like $12 a month for the entry level, not a big deal. Might as well give it another shot." I'm like, "Yeah, why not? Have fun, man." And he says, "You want to play?" I say, "Sure." And so I log in and I try to add him as a friend and I couldn't. Turns out he's on a different data center. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not a big deal. Come April 12th, I think that Final Fantasy XIV will allow you to play cross data center. Not a big deal. He said, "Okay, cool." And so we kind of just stayed in Discord still. And, I'm like, well, I'm going to be going through the MSQ now. I'm going to keep going through it. And he says, "Yeah, good luck." I said, "Are you going to, play the story now?" And he said, "No." I said, "Okay, well, then what are you looking to do?" And he said, "Well, I'm looking to do all of the group content and be really good at the game and play my class well." And turns out he was spending his time looking up class guides, trying to figure out how to play his class, all of this stuff. And I said, "Yeah, you can do that. You can just, you're already in Stormblood. You can go ahead and you can try all of the Heavensward raid content. You can do all of the content in A Realm Reborn for raiding. I mean, I haven't even gotten there, but I know it exists." And he said, "Yeah, true, true." And so, you know, this reminded me of what happened last year. And last year, you had a streamer pretty big streamer named Quinn69. And Quinn69 is a Path of Exile streamer, and he streams Diablo and these sort of ARPGs primarily. I mean, he's variety, but that's mainly what he plays. And so he gave Final Fantasy XIV a go as it was becoming very popular at the time. And he didn't like it. He also skipped a lot of the story and he bounced off and he said it was a really bad game. And then people just pounced on him and they said, "Bro, what are you doing? You cannot be skipping the story." And they just demonized my boy, Quinn. And so, really, what this video is about, and the moral of the story here, is that I don't think this is the way to go about it. My friend has picked up habits from World of Warcraft. Of course, he wants to skip all of this leveling content because it's shit to do in World of Warcraft, and so that's kind of the position he's coming from. Of course, he wants to do the raid content because in WoW, that's some of the only content that's still any good. And so, my friend has picked up these habits from World of Warcraft and he's bringing it over to Final Fantasy XIV. And old habits die hard. And for some people, they die harder than others. Some people just are more open to experiences. Some people are just more open to trying new things than other people. And my friend is not that open to trying new things. My friend is the type of person who will use a deodorant for 15 years until they stop making it and then lament the fact that they don't make it anymore until he finds a new pair that he sticks with for the next 15 years. This is the person my friend is. And so old habits die hard. And so the moment that, I try to demonize him and I say, "Hey, you can't do that. You have to go through the story." And trust me, I understand it hurts because I'm enjoying the MSQ and I understand how much Final Fantasy has to offer besides its raid content, and its raid content is just a small sliver of what that game has to offer. And so, I have the impulse to tell him, "Dude, just try the story out, man. Try out the Golden Saucer, man. There's so much to do in this game." But that's not the way to go about it. That's just not the way to go about it, because the moment I do that is the moment I say us versus them, me versus you. I think that this is the right way to play the game, and you think that that's the right way to play the game. And so now we're going to argue about it? No, no. If he wants to raid, all the power to him. And not only that, he's actually going to be getting treated better in Final Fantasy XIV than he was treated in World of Warcraft. Because in World of Warcraft, not only do you have the toxicity of the player base, but you also have the forced chores that you have to do in order to do the content that you really want. And this is something that he didn't like about World of Warcraft. You have to do Choregast, you have to, farm all these currencies, you have to do all of this stuff just so you can do the raid content that you want to do. And so that's one of the reasons why my friend stopped playing World of Warcraft. It kind of, consumed his whole life. And then he went on and he played Lost Ark instead. And Lost Ark also had predatory monetization. It had a lot of these gambling mechanics, and it had, a lot of RNG with gearing. And once he realized this, it's turned him off too. And so now, here's my friend, my poor friend, who loves endgame, high-end rating content. And the two MMOs that provided that for him have mistreated him as a human being. And so here he is coming back to Final Fantasy. And it actually will treat him better than these other two, despite the fact that a game like World of Warcraft, kind of depends on its rating for the majority of its retention of its player base. Final Fantasy, treats rating as a sliver, as a part of the game, but nowhere near the full game. But he wants to, just kind of play that narrow part. And he gets to do that, and he doesn't have to do the chores. He doesn't have to feel FOMO. He doesn't have to feel that compulsion to play. Not only that, but he doesn't have to deal with the fact that raid content in World of Warcraft, becomes obsolete after a time. Whereas in Final Fantasy, in A Realm Reborn, in Heavensward, in Stormblood, in Shadowbringers, all of the old expansions still have raid content that's relevant today. And so he gets more variety, and he's going to have a better time playing Final Fantasy XIV. So long as he likes the class design and so long as he likes the gameplay itself. In terms of the way that the game treats him and the systems, he's going to be treated better here. He just is. And so hopefully, of course, me being someone who really likes the MSQ and who's taking it slow and who wants to really just absorb all the game has to offer, someone like me hopes that he enjoys the game and that the raid content is fulfilling enough for him to, kind of build an appreciation for the game and to kind of habituate towards it, to then maybe one day try out the MSQ. And that day might never come. And that's okay too. And if the day never comes for my friend Garrosh Jr. to go and play the other aspects of the game and the other components of the game, and only plays the raid stuff, even then, he'll be treated better than the other popular MMOs on the market. And that's all I had to say for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.